So I'm Crystal Levesque. I'm share a little bit about what we're doing, what I'm doing here at SDSU. You saw a number of my students already this morning and some of the work that they're doing. I see my role here. I've got a heavy research appointment. I see my role kind of is under two umbrellas. One is research, obviously, and the other one I would describe as human capital. And while we've certainly worked on human capital, training graduate students, a little bit of undergraduate teaching, that role of developing human capital has taken on a little bit of a different, we've changed the color of the umbrella maybe a little bit over the last little while. So in relation to research, some of the things that we're really trying to accomplish, at least in my program, is to add new tools to the nutritional toolbox. One of the things that we're working on is rebuilding the nutrient requirement models for sows and better characterizing those amino acid needs in pregnancy. Some might say, well, we're doing a pretty good job, let's just leave things alone. And while that's true, I would agree we're doing a pretty good job. I think there's room for improvement. And as we learn more about what exactly that sow needs during pregnancy, as pressures to move sows to group housing, using more ESF, give us greater tools to tailor individual feeds and individual feeding programs, there's value in us having a better understanding of what that sow actually needs. We're also looking at feed additives within the sow diet. So if we can say assume that all her macronutrient and micronutrient needs are being provided, are there other things that we can provide in the feed to improve her, to help her, but even more importantly, to improve her offspring? So we have sows to produce baby pigs, and while baby pigs, we may sell them, they'll stay within the system. What we're really trying to create are full value market hogs. And so it's important for us to understand what does our feeding do to the sow and how does that influence those young pigs. And so when we look at what are we doing, so in part in collaboration with Dr. Clapper, we've also moved back a little earlier than before pregnancy, and that is trying to understand what I would describe as a full value gilt. So we talk a lot about a full value market hog, that pig that reaches market weight in an optimal period of time, gives us the most money on the rail. But that same description of a full value gilt could be used to say that female that enters the herd is maintained for at least 3 parities and gives us good, strong quality piglets at a minimum or an optimal number of piglets for each parity is a big value or big asset into the system. And so we're taking a look at what are the unique characteristics of those females, those young females that enter the herd particularly early, because we know that those females that enter those gilts that cycle early are more likely to stay in the herd long term and have better piglets. So what is it about her, those early cycling gilts, that we can identify on the farm? So we currently use tools with using the bore and back pressure, and while again we're doing a good job, those can go wrong if the people we have in the barn, those are training. And so it has potential to be a little bit more subjective. So we're looking to see if we can characterize who she is from a metabolic standpoint, and are there markers that we can use on the farm and create some new tools that we can use to identify those females that are going to be more likely to stand early, more likely to stay in the herd, and then become more valuable for us to spend more time on. Another piece that we're looking at as far as another tool in the nutritional toolbox is expanding ingredient options for young pigs. again, we're doing a really great job of feeding that young pig, and yet we still struggle with getting those young animals to eat and start consuming feed immediately after weaning. Excuse me. So are there different ingredients or ways to process those ingredients that would stimulate intake, that would improve that transition period immediately after weaning, get those pigs off early into the feed intake, and then set them up to be really successful and become a full value hog? So we're doing a lot of things really well. My little sort of box in the bottom right-hand corner, we're really effective and we're good at what we're doing. One of the things that we want to help the system, overall production system, do is become even more efficient with fewer inputs to equal the same output. So that's kind of an overview of the sort of philosophical approach that we have to our research program. You saw a number of the students this morning of the different trials that we're doing, including the medium chain fatty acids, feeding those to sows and looking at the offspring through to market. We're continuing to look at amino acid requirements during pregnancy and how the pregnancy influences how those amino acids are used. We've started a new program looking at using enzymes in sow diet. So a lot of us are including fibers in the sow diets, but can we make those diets even more valuable by including enzymes? And does that also improve piglet performance? We're looking at a number of different byproduct ingredients, similar to what Tafuko was doing here earlier, particularly those from the ethanol, new byproducts coming out of the ethanol industry. So in relation to human capital, we're kind of taking a new direction in here, and that is developing skills in science and beyond. So we do a great job, even across institutions, of getting our graduate students out with a really strong base foundation in science. Our challenge and what we heard from industry was these students are great with the science. They understand their science, but we're having to send them out to talk to producers or potential customers, or talking to the media or talking to our general consumers, and they're struggling to take that science and communicate it in a way that makes sense and provides value to these other audiences. And so that's one of the things that we've taken a little bit of a shift here, and that is put an emphasis on training students to communicate outside academia. Another thing that's a little bit challenging in the current state of affairs, but that is another thing that we heard consistently from industry, is the students that are coming in are great. We've got a lot of students that come in without really any practical experience. And just because they don't have practical experience doesn't mean that there isn't value for them. It doesn't mean that they don't bring a new look or perspective on the industry that we need to hear. But how do we help them get that practical experience before they actually get out into the field? And again, can contribute to that conversation when they are talking to barn managers. And so on that idea, we submitted a grant to the USDA that was specifically designed to try to answer and develop programs that would address those questions. And so this grant was funded by the USDA NIFA just this past May under the Higher Education Challenge Grant. The title is really long: Communicating Beyond Science to Scientists, Preparing Graduate Students for Future Careers in the Livestock Industry. What's particularly unique about this, it's a collaboration across 4 universities. So the grant is held here at SDSU, but it involves the Animal Science Department at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, North Dakota State University, and University of Minnesota. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what that program is. We've gotten a few of we've just recently started getting some of these things done. So one of the three big objectives of that program were to prepare our grad students as they enter the livestock industry and animal agriculture to improve the communication skills when talking outside of academia. So when they're conversing with producers or other livestock industry professionals, and even more, I would argue, very much importantly, to the public. Another thing that the program is designed to try to address is giving the students an opportunity to work with real life, real world problems in livestock. So we teach them really well to think scientific and research problems, but how do they apply that science that they've learned to solve real world problems? And then another objective of the program is to increase those networking opportunities more on a one-to-one basis with professionals who work in the livestock industry. It's not unusual for me to hear a grad student say, well, I think I know what I want to do, but I'm really not sure. So one of the great ways to know what opportunities they are and get them excited about being a part of the livestock industry is to be able to sit down with somebody and hear about what they do for their job. And so that one-on-one networking opportunities, which we try to accomplish at maybe some of the bigger scientific conferences, can get really difficult. There's a lot of other things that those individuals are doing at those big meetings, and so it makes it a little bit harder to do those one-on-one with some of these students. So the program is designed to be accomplished over 2 years. So an important thing to keep in mind is that the students that are entering this program are doing this over and above everything else that they're doing. So there's a big commitment to the students who are part of the program, because we already have them do a lot of things, or at least the students in my group tell me I give them a lot of things to do, or I expect a lot of things. And that's okay. But I think the fact that these students are willing to participate in this program that expects them, they will have to do additional work on top of everything else that they're doing, demonstrates the importance and their understanding of the importance of being able to communicate in these manners. So in the first year of the program, it's really kind of about creating that foundation where they have an idea of what does this mean? When we talk about communicating outside academia, who are we talking about? What does that mean and how does that look like? So we start the year with a seminar series. And so we did actually start that this year. We completed these 7 seminars, and we had industry leaders in each of these areas give a seminar. We had Dr. Rick Rasby from University of Nebraska, Lincoln, give a presentation on what does it look like to translate science in extension settings. Another one on the internet, in a sales meeting. Bill Even from the National Pork Board came and gave us a presentation on what does it mean to translate science to government officials? What does that look like? We had some more with consumers, and then connecting our ag groups with the non-ag groups. How do we help those communications? Another program or another activity that students will complete in the first year is this interpersonal communication skills. So some of you may have already done some of these things. Those are the colors. Are you red? Are you blue? Those kinds of things. And a reason for including this as part of the program is it's one thing for us to understand what color are you? What color am I? But it's important for me to be able to recognize in a group what potentially color is somebody else. So how does that other person perceive what's going on in the room, and how do I need to then alter my message so that it becomes clear to that person? Or how do I need to alter my approach to a group project so that the others in the room that are more quiet or sitting back and just listening and processing information quietly, and then there's someone else, a red, like me, in the room that's talk. Okay, good. We got a solution. We're going to get some answers. And by the end of this, we're going to be able to do that. Being able to identify and assess how those others in the room are communicating and how we can adapt the way we share so that the individuals that we're trying to communicate to are receiving our message and better able to receive our message. So that was an important part of that. And then we complete that year with an annual communication conference which we did actually complete just a week and a half ago. We completed our first annual communication conference. And this is a 2-day conference. It's a very small scale, and that's done on purpose. It was a little bit smaller even this year, because of all the other restrictions that we had. But there's direct interaction with the industry. So during those 2 days, the students have one-on-one interaction with industry personnel, and it's not restricted just to individuals from the livestock industry or from the swine industry, but it also includes those from the beef, the dairy, the meat science, poultry. So students get an opportunity to actually solve some real life problems, case studies that industry has come with, and get an opportunity to solve those problems. Here's how I would approach it. The students also come with 2 oral presentations where they then try to communicate their science to these non-academic audiences and get direct feedback on how well that they accomplished those communications. And so the students found that very valuable, and I think so did the industry personnel when we completed that. Year 2 gives the students an opportunity to specialize their communication training. So not all students will go directly into industry. Some might go into teaching or some other field. And so this is an opportunity for them to tailor it. We are strongly encouraging, one of the opportunities that students have is to complete a 2-week internship. So again, keeping in mind, these are not undergrads that have an entire summer off and can complete an internship over an entire summer, over 2 months. These are grad students that are working full-time all the time. So taking 2 weeks out of their activities to spend at a high level intensive training with someone in the industry doing positions or job that they would be targeting. So that's another way for us to incorporate some actual practical experience and give an idea that when they go out, they'll have an idea of what they're looking for. A lot of industries are struggling with communications across cultures as we increase the number of individuals from Hispanic or even other kinds of cultural backgrounds. So an opportunity to increase their communication across cultures is another component of that program. So just wrapping up, a couple of the other fun things that we're doing. We've started monthly conversations with industry experts, again, as another way, at least in COVID, to try and connect our students with industry, doing those from Zoom. So some of you, those are online. If you get an email or a call from my postdoc, that's what he's going to be looking for. We try to include in the students some special interest tours. We're going to go to the Sioux Falls Zoo into this week and take a look at nutrition program at the zoo. Again, just trying to expand their opportunities going beyond just the science. So I've got lots of help with all the things that I do. So that's just a quick list of all those individuals. I think I'm pretty tight for time. So if there are questions, I'll take them, but I think I ran over my 15 minutes.